Hello everyone, welcome my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe for the latest crypto news and price predictions. Siemens Tu-160 strategic bombers are currently deployed in the very spot to simultaneously threaten Ukraine and NATO. The Russians have placed their strategic aviation in such a way that from one point it is possible to simultaneously threaten NATO and continue to strike Ukraine. This may indicate a lack of serviceable strategic bombers for simultaneous use in several strategic directions. Norwegian media this week published satellite images showing that the Russians have relocated at least 7 Tu-160 strategic bombers and 4 Tu-95 Mega Siemens strategic bombers to the Olenia airfield, located on the Kola Peninsula, 100 kilometers from the city of Murmansk, the main base of the Northern Fleet of the Russian Navy. The Polish portal Defense 24 writes about this. Earlier, it was possible to learn from the reports of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine that it was from the Olenia airfield that the Russians launched their strategic bombers for missile strikes on Ukrainian civil infrastructure on October 10 to 11 this year. Earlier, it was also reported that the Russians transferred their 7 Tu-160s to the Olenia airfield at the beginning of October 2022, precisely at the time when they were preparing a new attack on Ukraine. But for the Western audience, the very fact of rebasing Russian bombers to the north of the Russian Federation causes a certain excitement because it turns out that the Russians managed to place their strategic aviation in such a way that it was able to threaten not only Ukraine, but also the northern flank of NATO. And all this happened on the eve of the Steadfast Noon exercises, during which NATO countries will practice the use of nuclear weapons. On the other hand, it can be concluded that Russia currently does not have enough strategic bombers to be able to use them in several directions. Because of this, the Russians are forced to maneuver in such a way that 7 Tu-160 strategic bombers and only 4 Tu-160 bombers should threaten both Ukraine and NATO's northern flank at the same time. And it's impossible to escape. Our own guys will shoot us. Security Service of Ukraine reveals how Russians' barrier troops work. The Security Service of Ukraine, SSU, has received evidence of how the Russian barrier troops work. It appears that drafted convicts are shot by conscripted rookies, and those, in turn, are shot by regular troops. Source: a telephone conversation between Russian invaders, recorded by the Security Service of Ukraine. Quote from an occupier: "The convicts were brought to us from a prison. They were led somewhere further forward. And we are here like barrier troops. If someone runs back, we take them out. This is how it is done here. That is, we are the second line here, guarding the first one, and there is a line behind us, too. You can't run there either. It's impossible to escape. Our own guys will shoot us." Details: the invader complains to his wife that, according to the documents, he should not be on active combat duty at all. According to the plan, he should be in training now. The SSU reminds the occupiers who want to survive and save their lives. The only right way to do so is to surrender to the Ukrainian forces. Russia's Wagner mercenary company trying to humiliate Russian Defense Ministry. ISW: the Russian mercenary company Wagner is trying to demonstrate its superiority to the Russian Defense Ministry, while its owner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, wants to curry favor with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. U.S. think tank the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, said in its report on October 15. ISW analysts pointed to a video posted on social media on October 13, in which servicemen of the Russian 126th Coastal Defense Brigade of the Black Sea Fleet in an unspecified location in Kherson Oblast complain that they have been fighting in this area since the start of the full-scale war without breaks or rotation of troops. The invaders claim that they are being crushed by Ukrainian forces and say that they have only one armored personnel carrier for 80 people, which severely limits their maneuverability. After the video spread online on October 14, a message appeared on the Wagner Telegram channel that the Wagner leadership had decided to transfer 4 off-road vehicles to the 126th Coastal Defense Battalion in support of their efforts to hold the front line in Kherson Oblast. The transfer of basic equipment to a detachment of conventional Russian ground forces may be a covert criticism of the MOD's apparent inability to provide basic necessities to its own soldiers, ISW analysts said. Meanwhile, Russia may have signed a new contract with Iran for the supply of Arash-2 drones, it has emerged. Military experts cited information from Russian and Ukrainian Telegram channels, including reports from unnamed Iranian sources. The number of purchased drones is unknown. In September, the commander of the Iranian ground forces, Brigadier General Qayyamars Haidari, said that the Arash-2 UAVs have unique long-range capabilities and can attack cities in Israel such as Tel Aviv and Haifa from bases in Iran. However, military experts doubt that Russian forces will be able to use the Arash-2 more effectively than they used the earlier purchased Shahed 136. Other conclusions of ISW analysts over the past day: Russia is conducting forced deportation of Ukrainians that likely amounts to a deliberate, ethnic cleansing campaign in addition to apparent violations of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Prominent Russian military bloggers, who previously claimed there were hit lists originating with the Russian Ministry of Defense, MOD, and targeting military bloggers for their coverage of operations in Ukraine, walked back their claim on October 15. Russian forces continued counterattacks west of Kremlin. Russian military bloggers widely discussed the likelihood of a Ukrainian counteroffensive on Kremlin and Svatov in Luhansk Oblast. Russian sources claimed that Ukrainian troops had launched a general counteroffensive in northern Kherson Oblast. Ukrainian forces likely struck Russian military assets situated along Russian ground lines of communication, GLOCs, in Zaporizhia Oblast and southern Donetsk Oblast. Russian and occupation administration officials continued to place restrictions on movement and conduct strict law enforcement activities in Russian-occupied territories. Good day to everyone.